Hey, I'm Anvita. I'm back again with a new episode. So, as you know, this is a place, a sacred space where we connect the sky above us to the sky within us so as we can uncover our cosmic truth. How are you guys? So, last episode, we journeyed through Aries, the first fiery sign of the zodiac. So, Aries, as I said, it brings boldness, courage, and raw drive. So, as we looked at the Aries, that it's a spark that initiates the desire to act, to lead, and to begin. It's like the fire in you, right? It can warm or it can burn you. And today we will look at the planet which is behind the zodiac sign, the ruling planet of Aries, and that is dan, 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 Mars. So that's what you are going to meet today. So let's talk about Mars because understanding Mars will help you understand because we all have Mars, right? So when you understand Mars, you will understand how you move through life because will have a unique Martian signature, which will be a sign where Mars is placed and also the house which will be placed. So Martian energy is, as you know, something what motivates us, how we assert ourselves, and where we put our energy, right? And what are we willing to fight for? What is more important for us? Where this martial energy shows up, like it's the home, the career, the relationships, and how it shows up. So that is all we are going to talk about in this episode. So to begin with, as we always look at the symbol of any sign or any um, planet is a giveaway, right? So if you have your chart handy, and if you look at your chart, you will see that Mars is represented by a circle, which you can see above, with an arrow pointing outward. So it is also the same symbol. You have seen this symbol before. It's the male gender. So it's not about the male, like, it's about the energy. The outward pointing arrow tells us something about the martial energy. So Mars is the masculine energy, the yang, right? It's this active, forward moving, penetrating force. So it doesn't wait, it initiates, it charges, it breaks through the resistance. So Mars is that part of you that wants something and it just goes for it. Your physical drive, your courage, your desire, it's also your sexual fire. And when it is not channelized properly, it can become your rage. Anger, we all get angry, but it can become rage when it is not channelized. When you feel blocked, right? Because you desire something and it's not happening. So you feel blocked, and that's your anger. So it is that instinctive force that says, let's go, this is what I want. But before we get too technical with keywords, let's learn about Mars through mythology. Because myths are where archetypes come alive. They are not just concepts, the keywords. That's something which, when I started learning astrology, I used to get confused and I have to memorize things, and that's not how my brain works. I have to understand it. That's why I'm doing mythology. So Mars as an archetype is in all the mythological story, the warrior, right? So it's not one story. So we'll look at few stories and we'll try to understand what Mars is and what is it represents in us. It's much more than the the warrior, right? It is a warrior, but there is much more to Mars than just that. Indian mythology, where Mars is called Mangal, and as I said, he's known as the son of Earth goddess. The Earth goddess is the Bhumi in India. So think of him. Why he is the son of Bhumi? So because on Earth, the reason why humans are surviving and succeeding is also because of this raw primal energy, which helps us to stand our ground, fight for what we want, and push through challenges. So that's the energy. And it helps us, it's the courage, the drive, and the physical strength of fierce warrior energy. That's why it's the son of Bhumi. But it's also the same energy, that leads to war, control, domination. And that is the reason in Hindu mythology, Mangal is seen as malefic. It is not seen as a benefic. I don't see planets as malefic and benefic, but in Hindu mythology, Mangal um, is seen as a malefic planet because not because he's bad, but because this kind of intense fire which can burn everything if left unchecked, right? It can burn out of control. So that is the Hindu mythology take on Mars. Now, if we go to Babylonian myth, Mars is not the Mangal, but it is called the Nergal. But it's similar. It's like the god of war, the plague, and also the god of underworld. Now I'll tell you how this god of war becomes the god of underworld. There is a story behind it. So the Nergal, the god of war, he was this lion-headed, very fierce and relentless warrior. So Nergal is invited to a divine banquet hosted by the gods. But Ereshkigal, the goddess of underworld, sends a messenger to represent her. Now Nergal disrespects the messenger in the party, right? In the banquet. So Ereshkigal feels very insulted. She demands that the god sends Nergal to her realm to apologize. Now, Nergal says, I don't want to apologize, but gods convince Nergal and says, you have to go to the underworld, and he leaves for the underworld. But instead of apologizing, because he's this relentless warrior, that's not I want to do, and this woman, and he storms to the underworld and overpowers her gatekeepers. So he starts a war against underworld, and he bursts into her throne room with the intent to kill her. But what happens next? So when he sees Ereshkigal, he falls in love with her, the Venus. He's struck by her power and her beauty. So both Nergal and Ereshkigal fall in love and become husband and wife. And later, he starts to co-rule the underworld. So that's the story of how he became the king of underworld, but he is the co-ruler with Ereshkigal, right? So it's not just a myth. So there's so much more to this story if you look at it. It's not just the story of war. It's the story of taming, transformation, and integration of Mars-like energy, the raw primal instinctual force, uncompromising independence, the urge to dominate, and I don't want to apologize, I don't want to submit. But when this energy descends into the underworld, the more reflective, the unconscious, the domain of Ereshkigal, the deep feminine, the shadow realm, of grief, death, mystery, and hidden power. Because a lot of time, what is the source of all that anger? We have to look at it. So when it goes into the subconscious and start looking at the source of it, it confronts it. It cannot fight or overpower the usual way. So Ereshkigal, the queen, is not a victim. She is the queen of unseen. So when you see the unseen, you change, right? You transform. You understand what's the source of everything. So the unseen command respects. it wants you to co-rule. So when Nergal arrives in her realm, he's stripped of his surface bravado, which is the surface level, and that's where the transformation begins of a human being, right? So it shows us that Mars like energy meets the shadow, the part of the life that can't be controlled or conquered by force. Something deeper is activated. The drive to dominate can evolve into the capacity to commit, to share power, and to endure transformation. So the masculine doesn't lose its strength, but it gains the depth to devotion and responsibility, how you show up. So it matures when it comes in contact with the feminine shadow. It doesn't die, it just transforms. So this is another aspect of Mars and the Martian energy. And that's why in Hindu mythology, Mars also rules eighth house. Eighth house is a house of deep transformation, the Scorpio like energy. So, Mars in Hindu mythology, it is also rules Scorpio. But later on in Western astrology, we have Pluto, which represent that. So we look at the transformation as a Plutonian energy, but we do see Mars used to, and sometimes I do look at Mars in that way, the transformation, the power to transform. Now we will look at another myth and look at Mars from a different understanding. So in Greek myth, Ares, the god of war, again, he's disliked. He's not um, uh, worshipped in a way. He is not. He's he's seen as a bloodthirsty, stupid god, right? He's the god of war. He's brutal. He's impulsive and reactive. So basically, Greeks don't like Ares. Aphrodite, we all know, the goddess of charm and beauty, she couldn't resist Ares' bold energy. So they have this, but they have an intense, passionate, and chaotic affair. Mars and the Venus. Mars and Venus go hand in hand. And it gave birth to several children. But three of the children are really important here. So, most famously, we look at Phobos. He's the fear, Demos, terror, and Harmonia, the daughter. So let's look at Phobos and Demos. So Phobos and Deimos, according to mythology, they accompany Ares into battle. They actually reflect the shadow side of love and war. In real life or in inner life terms, they represent the emotional consequences of unchecked desire and aggression. When Mars energy, the action, assertion, and conflict combines Venus, your desire, attachment, beauty, it can create fear of loss, fear of rejection, anxiety about not being loved or winning. So you might pursue a passion project or a relationship with this intense drive. But if it is not rooted in awareness or inner peace, you may constantly feel anxious, fearful, right? Or terrified of failure, the demos. So you can get into fight and flight state. A lot of relationships, when the love goes unchecked and it's about controlling the other person, that's where the love can lead to, right? So when we chase something from ego, that's not love. It's it's not soulful. It's dominating, right? But they also had a daughter of Harmonia. So there is one aspect of love and war. Another aspect is turbulent union of love and war can create harmonia. So what is this mythology whispering as a secret? So she represents the potential for balance between the masculine and the feminine, the love and the war, the passion and the peace. the action and the beauty. So in astrology and life, harmonia happens when we are conscious. We are conscious brings your assertive drive of Mars into alignment with your values and relationship, which is the Venus. When masculine and the feminine energies in you collaborate rather than clash, there is harmony. There is peace. Harmony is peace. So when you learn to say no without aggression, which is called assertiveness, you express desire without manipulation. You lead with both clarity and compassion. So that is harmonia at work. So the story of Aries and Aphrodite isn't just about lust and affair and the scandal. It's an archetypal tale of how the collision between love and war can ultimately give rise to something, the peace, the harmony, right? So there's so much to dig into and reflect on, but let's move on with other archetypes, which are actually the feminine archetypes, not the masculine. In a lot of, I'll not go into the details of the story, but if you're interested, you can look into it. Like Inanna, she is the Babylonian Venus. She's the female archetype of Martian energy. She's a war goddess. So her rage brings flood and chaos. Amazons, the daughters of Aries, heirs as well. So they were warrior women, and there are many stories about Mars in different myths. But in short, Martian energy is about courage, instinct, and sacred rage, right? I love this word, sacred rage. You're angry because you think something has to be differently. So when it is channelized properly, that leads to activism and standing up for what's right, rather than blindly following. Uh, so positive impacts in a person makes you more focused, unshakable, right, in their resolutions. It can make them, if you have a positive Venus and you know how to use Martian energy, you become successful leaders and individual. A person with weak Mars or who doesn't use their Mars properly, they can never become leaders, right? They cannot lead. So it gives them the aura of a king. So it is actually the will to live and protect what you love, depending on which house it is in. So the keywords of Mars after listening to the stories are courage, the leadership, the passion, the boundaries, motivation, willpower, right? And it's, yes, the anger too, right? The rage too, the charging ahead too. But when it is more mature, the kind that doesn't react impulsively and emotionally, but act with purpose, Mars is deeply spiritual. It is very, very sacred. It's not the part who is just pushing forward without caring about other people. It also understand and respects the silence. That's something which I learned. Silence is very, very powerful. It knows when to pause instead of push. It knows, as I said, that silence is not your weakness, it's super strength. It's restrained. It is the inner knowing that you don't have to prove your power by fighting every battle. You choose the right ones, the one which are meaningful to you, right? You don't fight for no reason, right? That's a very sacred and spiritual and a conscious Mars. But as I said, Mars, which is also considered malefic in Vedic astrology, when uncontrolled and unchecked, it can lead to anger. I don't consider anger as a negative word. Rage and destruction and aggression and control, reactive behavior, impulsiveness, impatience, ego clashes, the burnout, really. I mean, how long you can fight for something. It can lead to workout. So, in the end, I would say the real work for you is to first pull up your chart and look at the Mars and see, how do I work with my Mars? How do I channel my inner fire? What is there in your birth chart? So go ahead. Maybe you can pause the video and just pull up your chart if you have handy in front of you and look for Mars. So look for that circle and the point arrow pointing outward. Where is it? Is it in your fiery Aries? Because if it is, wow, you are a leader. Mars is happy there. It's right at home. This is the raw energy. You don't need anyone to tell you. You have a drive. You are very much self-motivated. You are instinctual. You act. So you probably don't wait. You just go. You know, first to speak, first to act, first to fight for what you care about. It's like Mars with a sword in his hand says, let's do it. Great leader. But if your Mars is in Cancer, it's not weak. It's just a different vibe. That Mars in water is more emotional. It's more protective. It's like this mama bear energy. We all need that. It's fierce, but very, very soft underneath. Mars in Cancer is not looking for a fight. But when you mess up with someone they love, including themselves, watch out. Watch out for Mars in Cancer. I'm a Mars in Libra, so it's a very different energy. I'm a peace warrior. I can't see unfairness, and that's what I work with. And it's not just human beings; it's other beings. I became an environmentalist because I fight for justice. If you are Mars in Capricorn, Mars gets very strategic, right? This is the mountain goat. Capricorn is a mountain goat. He climbs steadily, no drama, no rush. It's very focused, relentless focus. So if you have a Mars in Capricorn, you might be someone who channels your energy into long-term goals, right? Career, achievement, structure, and you are working through it. Not impulsive, but you um, plan, and you have a very focused approach in your life. But it's not, as I said, it's not just the sign. So this is one aspect of your martial energy. You have to look at where your Aries is as well. But it's also the house that shows where Mars show up in your life. So let's just say your Mars is in Aries in the first house, right? So Mars is also again comfortable in first house. It is your identity. And so that's the double dose of bold. So you might come across as natural reader. You act really fast, very impulsive. You sometimes before you think until your Mars matures. But you also learn through experiences. You are here to move energy, to make things happen. That's what you're born here for. It just you have to be a bit more conscious. But if your Mars in Cancer, the mama bear energy is in your 12th house. So that's even more subtle. So you have the mama bear energy, you protect the people you care about, but if you get angry, you don't express it openly. There's a deep emotional intensity underneath, but you don't show that, right? Because 12th house, it becomes more internal. So your battles happen behind closed doors. Sometimes in your subconscious, 12th house is all your subconscious. You might be the one who fights through dreams, creativity, or even doing the Christian spiritual work, right? So you are working on yourself all the time. And let's say Mars in Capricorn, this focused energy shows up in your 5th house. So that's a very disciplined fire, but it's in the realm of not career, But in creativity, you plan your creative projects. Romance, you plan your romantic projects. And the children, you could be someone who takes all your passions. That's your fifth house, seriously. Maybe you're an artist who treats your craft like a job, or a parent who builds a strong foundation for their kids, or someone who knows love, not with words, but with commitment, structure, and staying power, right? Because love is the romance as well. So in romance, you're also looking for commitment and structure. So, whatever. So, as I said in my first episode, that the planet, the sign which is in, and then which house, where it shows up, that energy. So, wherever Mars is in your chart, whatever the sign, whatever the house, Mars is always aligning you. So, you have to just look at your chart where it is. And here's the thing, when you get to know this part of yourself, when you work with your Martian energy, you unlock something really, really powerful. You unlock the power to choose. You unlock the power to act. You unlock the power to protect the values and what matters. And the power to keep going, even when it gets hard, there's less frustration when you understand yourself. That's the key. Because Mars isn't just about conflict of anger, he's about your courage, the courage to begin, to take this next step, to stand up, even when things get very, very messy, even when you are very scared. So it is bringing me to the close. So I would say, take a look. Where is your Mars and what kind of fire do you carry? And as I always say, the sky up there is within you. These archetypes aren't out there, they live inside of you. I love mythology for this reason, and that's why I'm doing these podcasts. Because when you understand the mythology, you understand the archetypes, we stop reacting and start living with more awareness and intention. Like something happens and you become more conscious. Oh, that's my pattern, that's my default. And now, how can I be conscious and don't react, but respond to the situation in a more creative way, really? So, thanks again for listening, for tuning in to Sky Astrology. My next episode, we'll look at Taurus, the second sign of the zodiac. And if you love this episode, share it with your friend who needs a little fire right now. And if you'd like to know what Mars is doing in your chart, reach out. I would love to read your stars. So, as you say, you can find me on Instagram, on Facebook, make a booking, and press this bell icon so as you don't miss another episode. I just keep repeating it. I don't, it's interesting. So until next time, I would say stay grounded, stay passionate, and stay connected always and conscious with the sky within you. Thank you. Bye.